I don't think it turns around if Kamala Harris gets into office. I think they clamp down more. I think the same stuff that they were trying to do with Twitter, they'll try to do with something else and with other things. They've already openly discussed it. You know, she's openly discussed that the same rules have to apply to Facebook, they have to apply to Twitter, and that Elon Musk could lose his privileges.
A grim prediction from Joe Rogan, who warns that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will declare war on free speech if they win the election, and that they've already talked about it publicly. Here to react, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Tammy, so great to have you on, especially on this subject, on this topic, which is so important in this election. In fact, I would say that this topic, along with government surveillance and unaccountability in the federal government in general, these are the top issues of the election.
They are. And already this election has been different because of Elon Musk.
Yes.
Because of the change from Twitter to X. There are so many issues that would never even been allowed to be discussed. And yet we are having those conversations. And they're obsessed with social media because, without sounding trite here, information is power, and they don't want to have to explain things. They don't want the clips of Kamala Harris contradicting herself for years in front of everyone all the time. They want you to not have access to that. They want to remake the news with each news cycle. They want to control what people hear. And already, even despite the Supreme Court decision, the Biden administration, they look at the little bit of room they have, and they are going to, and have already begun to reconnect with social media outlets. Now, they can't tell them what to do, but they never really could because of the First Amendment. But they're obsessed with control of information because they know when people get the information, the truth, that the Democrats and the left suffer. So she has stated, and this thing about privilege, Elon Musk's privilege, that is not given to any American by the government. And of course, with his association now with President Trump and a likely role in the administration, that is the only way that we're going to make sure that freedom of speech, the First Amendment, stays relevant. Yeah, well, Tim Walz claimed that the First Amendment does not apply to misinformation. Again, a fundamental misunderstanding of what our rights are when it comes to free speech, where our rights come from, which are from God. Right. We're born free. We're Americans. I mean, it's just outrageous. I just think this is so disqualifying as candidates. If you believe this, you're not qualified to be the president and vice president of the United States. What you're doing is you're setting a table to convince and persuade Americans that the Constitution does not matter. And that is an argument the left has made for decades, for 100+ years around the world, that in fact, regular people aren't good enough to be able to run their own lives. They have to be guided by their superiors. And of course, the disturbed, who are in politics, which attracts a lot of the disturbed these days, believe that they are simply better, and they just don't like what's happening. And you know, when we think about the border and crime, this is about punishing us for daring to not conform, to not comply. Well, they're going to get a healthy dose of that, I think, on November 5th. Or daring to notice what they're doing and talk about it. You're not allowed to do that. Thank God for Elon Musk. It would be a very different election without that. Tammy Bruce, always great to have you on. We love you.